let's start with Geelong. Now, given that you're a part of the setup there, I'm curious to see what you've come up with.
Well, I'm hopeful that a couple of the new acquisitions, and this year the acquisitions were all young, as opposed to past seasons with your Isaac Smiths and Sean Higginses and those types where they've been a little older. I'm hopeful that, a Bruin or a Ollie Henry or
Jack
Bowes or a Jai Clark can be the 2023 version of Sam De Koning. Now, that is asking a fair bit, but I was bullish this time last year, and people just fobbed it off as Geelong bias. But when you take out older guys and you put in some young guys who have got growth and have got enthusiasm, which you can't buy, Sam, good things can happen. So a lot of the knockers, again, will say, well, you're even older again, these guys. But if a Henry or a Bruin or a Bowes or someone like that jumps up and takes a position, Joel Selwood's position per se, then good things can happen.
I was trying to think of a song that might encapsulate this feeling I have for Geelong or this desire I have for Geelong. Tom Petty, Won't Back Down is too simple. The Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. They shouldn't want and should not accept any satisfaction for what they did last year. So Chris Scott won a flag in 2011 without the best player in the game when they lost Gary Ablett. See if you can go again and win it without the best cat of all time. Now, people will argue that, but whether it's Polly Farmer or Gary Ablett Sr. But see...
It's the most credentialed cat
the most credentialed cat of all time. Chris Scott won one without Ablett, and people said, well, you can't win a flag without Gary Ablett Jr. See if you can win one now without Joel Selwood, who steps up into his leadership void, who steps up to play his role. I would think that given how long it took to get back to the big dance and then to win one, obviously they lost in 2021, but or 2020 rather, to not be satisfied, I think, would be my New Year's resolution for John, because you're right, they clocked trade week. No one will ever win a trade week and a draft period and an off season like Geelong did.
Well, hang on, I gave that award to the Lions, so you're giving it to the Cats, which is fair enough because we've got
close second to the Lions. They did brilliantly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a good period, particularly, I guess, as I mentioned when we started this conversation about the Cats. We've seen them go down the path of guys who are 30 or above. And now that's helped yield them a premiership. So all those decisions are justified. But now we see them get young guys, second and third year players, and get themselves in the top 10 of the draft, which was a masterstroke as well. So that should give Cats fans who maybe think that they can't win the premiership again. Now, I'm not sure why you think that, but if you do, you should have plenty of confidence in the fact that in 2, 3, 4 years when these players are the cornerstones of the club, then they'll again be in great hands.
Yeah, and that should be the exciting thing for the Cats fans, because the players they brought in are... Ollie Henry is a proven commodity. Jack Ginnivan came along in a way, and then the forward line sort of developed in a way that meant that Johnson was the option ahead of him. But this is a guy who, once he got over his goal-kicking yips, won a couple of games off his own boot for the Pies. Tanner Bruhn is... we think could be, he's not going to be a big-bodied mid, but he's going to be a fast outside player with different foot skills. And I think Jack Bowes is a player.
Yeah, Bruin's the one who, again, we're talking about drills and non-contact, and Bruin's the one who I must admit I know next to nothing about. I just hadn't seen him play much and haven't really scouted him. And he's the one who, I love the way he moves, and he looks like he kicks the ball really, really well, again, against no opposition, under no pressure. But he's the one who I probably didn't know much about, who's been most impressive thus far. And
Sam De Koning might be a nice early prediction for All Australian honours if he continues on in the vein that he has been. We're up to the Gold Coast Suns, JJ. New Year's resolution for the Gold Coast Suns. What have you got?
The Gold Coast Suns. Now, let me scroll to G. As strong at the end as they've been at the beginning. They have teased us for too long with these early season fireworks, and then through injury and probably again. And I have really laboured the point, but the smaller, younger bodies have gotten tired and injured, and things have fallen by the wayside. So maybe I'm putting it on the coaching staff to get creative and say a little Geelong-esque, but in a different manner. Let's look at the season in its totality and how can we be at our strongest toward the back half of the year rather than, getting off to a 3-1 start but then losing 8 of the next 10, those types of things. So that is my wish for the Sunshine Boys.
Yeah, rebuild and then re-sign Ben King. I know he is signed till the end of 2024, but rebuild him and then re-sign him as quickly as you can. Not necessarily for as long as you can. Susan has texted in, "Hi Sam and Josh, surely a New Year's resolution for all 18 clubs would be not to sign to long-term multi-million-dollar contracts. No contract should be more than 4 years max. Enjoying the show." Susan, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm a little bit like Kane when it comes to those long-term deals for bulk dollars. But yeah, rebuild and re-sign Ben King. That would be it for me. Marby Ochol and Levi Casbolt did a great job, and I'm really excited, with all due respect to Levi. I'm really excited to see what Ben King and Marby Ochol looks like. Obviously, it's going to hurt with no Isaac Rankin, who did have a very good year. High score involvements, high goal assist when he wasn't kicking them himself. But who can step into that role?
Different gravy, Ben King. Again, with the greatest respect to Chol and to Levi, I think they should. I think they should have a look at playing all three of them to start the season.
Interesting.
Because
how would that work?
Chol's a dynamic athlete. Chol's not a
Crows 2017 vibe about it.
Well, yeah, kind of. There's teams that have played, like Brisbane have done it, and I know we've argued that they've looked better without, but they're so different. Chol and King are dynamic athletes.
Yep.
Chol is a sort of a hybrid forward who just happens to be 202 centimetres.
Yep.
He kicked a lot of goals in general play and running back toward goal and all those types of things last year. So, and he can play as the genuine second ruck option. King's a lead out full forward. He's good at ground level, and Casbolt will be able to crash the packs for them and certainly ease King back into things. So I'd love to see them start the season with all three.
All right, so that's the Gold Coast Suns, and finals that they're still need to get into September.
Yeah, break that duck. Yep. Yeah, that's key.
That is key for them. What about the Giants? New Year's resolution for the GWS Giants. Have got a new coach. They've lost Taranto and Hopper. As the exodus we see, there's always a couple that go each and every year, but they drafted really well, again, including the number 1 pick, Aaron Cadman. What's your New Year's resolution for the Giants?
I feel a bit rude saying it, but relevance. I'm a bit worried for their relevance in the west of Sydney. You know what? They've even said some things which has me sort of querying and worried and concerned about what it looks like in terms of being on an even playing field. Because I heard Jason McCartney say, and I've spoken to people, sort of on air and off air, about the fact that they truly now believe they can't draft certain players because of the fact that they don't want to be in Western Sydney, and that is as big a concern as you can have for a footy club. So to be able to maintain a level of relevance, to make them look attractive to players. If you can't draft players and get them in from day one and have them love the place, how can you possibly expect to attract players who know what it's like elsewhere? So, there's a concern for them in that sense in terms of how they're going to go on the field. That's also they're the biggest TBC for me of the whole competition. I'm just not sure what to expect from them.
Yeah, you raised some great points in that. The ability to attract and retain players, I feel they have that challenge more than any team in the competition. So how do you address that? What do you do at your footy club? Is it is it the facility? Is it the family environment? What is it that is going to keep people there? And I suppose going deeper in your interview process, like they said they were in the draft, is to make sure that who they find wants to stay and what the priorities are for someone's career. Do you like the anonymity that will come with the Giants? Do you have to live in a coastal location, or there's beautiful places along the river that stretch all the way out into the west of Sydney? So what are your priorities in life? And then in football, they're going to have to go a lot deeper than any other club, I think. So there's a big job for the players, the senior players, JJ, that are still there, to make sure that once you step into that environment, you just never ever want to leave it. And they,
Yeah, and that's sounds easy.
and not just because you paid a ton to be there, which has been how they've had to keep players.
Yeah, and that's cost them because they've been bursting at the seams and they've lost players who they no doubt would have liked to have kept because they just simply couldn't afford them. So, I had to sort of bring that point up and speak about that because I believe it, but it's one I wish they didn't have to deal with. And I'm only saying it because I've heard them speak about it.
Mine is care for Cadman. So I've heard reports already, and other people are doing these things that we're doing, the New Year's resolutions, and saying, make Aaron Cadman the face of your organisation right now and play him. Just be careful. What we know about young key forwards, and you were one, so I shouldn't. This is your expertise, not mine. Bodies take longer to mature. Bone density takes 22, 23 studies have shown that now. So yes, you want to put him out there and put him up in lights and really make a big deal of what you've got here in this number one pick, who has drawn comparisons to the key forward you lost in Jeremy Cameron. But just cotton wool, care for him. Wait, be patient. You know this because you're a young key forward and you've seen it and worked with a ton of them, and you do so now. So am I on the money there, or am I way off the mark?
You are on the money. It's horses for courses, but you are on the money now. I guess the issue is Jeremy Cameron was a slightly built key forward who just completely burst onto the scene and was kicking 50 and 60 in a team that was terrible and getting blown away. But I do agree. You've got to protect him. For every Jeremy Cameron, there's a Jack Watts who gets sort of thrown into the system and he's not physically ready for what's about to get thrown at him. Cadman's going to come up against. He'll be more talented than pretty much everyone he plays on, but he'll have a far, far less idea of how to use your body and how the game is played and what to expect and how physical to be. So every time he plays this year, it's likely he's going to be outmatched and outgunned when it comes to the physical side of the game. So that's tough for him. Maybe his talent will be just so far superior that he can make things happen and do some things. But I do agree they'll have to look after him.
What's your New Year's resolution for the Hawks?
We need to be able to see the light for the Hawks. They've offloaded plenty of experience and success. Sam Mitchell and his team clearly have their own plan, and one that they think is going to take some time. But any club, not Hawthorn because they're been a strong club and they've been successful, but any club, you don't want to experience the years that we saw with North Melbourne last year. Basically, every time you go and watch your team play, you think you can't win. That's not a situation fans want to be in. And there's a lot of naysayers about Hawthorn. I haven't, to be honest, spent enough time having a look at their squad and who they do have rather than who they've let go to know whether they might be in that situation. But, hearing a lot of people say that they will be. And I think all you want is, okay, we can accept that we're going to go backwards a fair way, but we want to be able to see the path forward, not we're backwards and we're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's been made about the 1,000 games of experience or so that have gone and, losing O'Meara and Mitchell a Brownlow medalist, but they were 18th. They were the 18th ranked midfield in the competition anyway. So the alarmists, I sort of think, are maybe too much so. And my New Year's resolution is peace and quiet, which won't happen because there is still the result of something very serious that needs to be worked through and mediated. And a fair result for all parties to be achieved. But some peace and quiet, which they'll get now after the most recent election. But also, too, don't jump at shadows. If they've accepted they're going to have a down year, all they have to do is play a brand that is exciting enough to keep people coming, even though when they think, well, we're probably not going to win, but it'll be fun to watch. It'll be exciting to see as they go with the kids. Don't jump at shadows that will be created by those saying Sam Mitchell's job might be under pressure if they can't get a win. Don't listen to any of that. Dermot Brereton spoke before that boards get jittery when they start to read certain things and look at certain things, and then they start to question their own decisions, and next thing you know, you've got another second-year coach being shown the door because we thought we had a long-term plan, but then we just got cold feet.
We got swayed, We listened to the noise, and that's why they say keep the noise out. Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you what, they can take some heart from the Hawthorn performance early in the year, going to Adelaide and beating Port Adelaide. The best display of field kicking and skills I've seen or I saw last season. So that is an area of the game, and you say that teams like to play like their coaches. Well, Sam Mitchell could kick the ball. So if he can teach his players to kick the ball, it's a good start.
JJ, as we tie a bow around the Hawks' New Year's resolution, a couple of texts. I'm thinking Sam Mitchell may have taken out too much experience for the Hawks to cope this year and will fall back. Only Luke Bruce is left to do everything. Hawks needed to hold on to Jack Gunston for one more year just for the experience. Young talent is okay, but it's too much for them. That's from Dean. And then David says, for the Hawks to get it out of the middle is the New Year's resolution. Before you say don't get rid of Tommy and Jaeger, they were last year in the 18th ranked midfield. That's from David in Surrey Hills. So differing views from a couple of different Hawks fans there, JJ. Who is next?
Who is next? That's a good question.
Well, if we did Hawthorn, then if
comes after H?
If my alphabet is correct, and I believe it is, it'll be Melbourne.
Well, it depends if you call the Kangaroos North Melbourne or the Kangaroos, depending on how they want to be determined at the time. Become a midfield machine. That is the area of the ground where they can become elite and be powerful and compete with the very, very best and overpower teams who are not quite as good, because we've seen the Dees have a powerful midfield and overcome a potentially subpar forward line by just being able to punch it in and give them quality opportunities. So if Davies Uniacke and Simpkin and if Cunnington's out there and ready to rock and roll, the ruck combination I like. Goldstein played good footy. Cherry was really good earlier in the year, and Wardlaw's his stuff around the ball, his ground balls and loose ball gets look absolutely brilliant. So they potentially have an elite midfield.
Did you just do North Melbourne?
Yes.
I thought we were going to do Melbourne.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I called them the Kangaroos. I classify them as the Kangaroos. So
that's okay. Mine for them. No. Well, let's roll with this. We'll do Melbourne on the other side of the break. Clarko, Kanga Kennedy, Mark II. So under Kennedy, they made the finals in their very first year, 1985, that was under him. That won't happen this year, but what they want is for Clarko to have that immediate impact and long-term, like Kennedy did, coming from Hawthorn and North Melbourne, made finals twice as their coaches. But what he's lauded for, JJ, is the work that he did with Wayne Carey, Glenn Archer, Anthony Stevens, Craig Scholl and Mick Martin that set up that two-premiership successful era. He'll want to do the same with Phillips, Thomas, Larkey, Sheezer, Wardlaw, Powell, Curtis, Coleman, Jones, Lazaro, Archer, Spicer, Perez, another Archer in there just to complete the synergy of all that. So that's Clarko to be Kanga Kennedy Mark II.
Dees.
Yes.
Success for Grawn, the Tap brothers. I'm calling them Grawn. Well, that's pretty straightforward. I think we save a little bit of time instead of saying Grundy and Gawn and just say Grawn. I have a view that they're going to use them. A lot of people are saying, but they're both first rucks. Well, I think they'll both be in the ruck at the same time in terms of front half, back half ruckman. That's how I think they're going to use them.
So who's who?
I don't think it matters. I think they'll be able to get really flexible with it. I know Gorney's sensational in the team defence when he gets behind the ball, helping intercept mark and working so hard to get from the. He bases himself in the centre of the ground and he works hard to get to one side of the ground and helps force that team to kick long down the line where he's waiting, but he's equally good getting busy in terms of marking contests and those types of things ahead of the ball. And Grundy's very similar. Grundy won't kick many goals. He'll kick probably less than 10 or 12 goals for the year. But what he will do is help be a bit of a conduit in terms of providing a contest 80 metres from goal and allowing Brown and McDonald not to have to do those types of things.
I'd add to that, their New Year's resolution should really be Richmond 2019. So you get that premiership as Richmond did in 2017, and what a joyous occasion that it was, a drought broken, and then for Melbourne as well. And then you don't get back there the year after. Don't lose faith in where you're going and what you're doing, and I'm sure they won't, but I'm sure it'll be taking a look at that and saying, well, you know, they still were able to create their dynasty. There's just a year gap where they didn't quite put it together and a bit of a shock loss in that prelim, and Mason Cox tore them apart. But so be Richmond 2019. And the other one I would add is Van Rooyen. Play that man. Play that man.
Tell me about him, or tell the listeners about him. I don't know much about him. What type of player are we dealing with here?
So a key forward, and again, I only know what I've been told from the people that have seen his performances at VFL level, but the faith in him is very clear because they were happy to let a bloke that they took, I think, at pick 10 in his draft year, in Sam Wiedemann, and let him go.
Yes, but we'd seen a fair bit of Sam.
We had, but he's 19 years of age, Jacob Van Rooyen. 193 centimetres, 91 kgs from Western Australia. Could play either end of the ground, but I think they really like the look of him. So they'll get Tom McDonald back, but it just seemed that they want Ben Brown to be a player that Ben Brown isn't, and because they have Bailey Fritsch that plays that lead-up role. So, and to Ben Brown's credit, I think he has actually taken at times some good marks and has provided a contest as a high marking forward, because that's what he's been asked to do, which is not what he was kicking 60 goals a year doing at North Melbourne. So, and again, this is your terrain, and I'm just throwing this back to you to get your view. So clearly there's a key forward concern at Melbourne, and unfortunately, whilst Ben Brown I thought was instrumental in helping them get that flag, because when he came into the side 2/3 of the way through the year, they went from 8th to scoring into 4th for scoring, and you've got to be top 4 scoring and top 4 defensively to win a flag more often than not. So there's a big opportunity to put this guy in and make him the man.
You're probably going to make a fool of me. But can you tell me a lead key forward, a lead dog who stands at 193 and 95 kgs or less? Now, Van Rooyen is 193 and 91.
They might be last year's measurements too, by the way.
They might be, but I don't know how much he might be. What? Let's give him one. All I'm saying is those really those pillars in the front half they're all 200. I'm not disputing the fact he's a very good player. I'm just saying he might be. Is he going to be what they are after or what they need? I agree with you in terms of Ben Brown. I thought he did a good job trying to play a role that he's not necessarily suited to. He was selfless in doing that. Could easily have said, well, I was quite good as a Coleman medal winning
lead
key
up
forward.
Yeah.
So they do have a bit to work through in that front half, don't they? And again, that's. I spoke about it with North. They overcame a little bit of that with in the 2020. What year did they win the premiership? 2021. I don't even know. Who knows what year it is?
They all blend into each other at the moment.
They overwhelmed defences with just supply and great supply, and Petrarca would get forward, and so they need to remember that is probably how they 12 goals from the forward line and or maybe even 10 goals from the forward line and another 6 or 8 from the midfield. So there's a bit to work through for the Dees.